Look at your own body. You are one of the strangest mammals ever to walk the earth. Right now, you're balancing your entire body on just two narrow legs while gravity does everything it can to pull you toward the ground. Every step you take is a controlled fall. You lean forward, begin to collapse, and catch yourself at precisely the right moment. Most mammals never have to solve this problem. They move on four limbs, stable, powerful. The traditional image of human evolution is familiar. An ape climbs down from a tree, steps onto an open grassland, stands upright, and begins walking toward the future. It's simple, it's memorable, and while there is some truth in it, modern evidence suggests the real story was far more complicated. Many of our earliest hominin fossils were not found in vast open savannas. They were found in environments that still contained forests, woodlands, rivers, and scattered trees. That means the first steps toward walking upright probably happened long before our ancestors completely abandoned life in the canopy. Ironically, the forest itself may have taught them how to stand. Our relatives each solved the challenge of survival in different ways. Gorillas became immensely powerful. Orangutans perfected life high in the forest canopy. That single evolutionary path would eventually separate our story from every other great ape on Earth. Watch a modern orangutan moving through the treetops. When branches become too thin to support all four limbs, it often rises onto its back legs while holding branches overhead for balance. Chimpanzees display similar behavior when reaching for fruit growing just beyond their normal reach. For a few moments, they become temporary bipeds, not because they are trying to travel, but because standing allows them to reach something valuable. Those extra pieces of fruit may seem insignificant, yet in nature, small advantages often become powerful evolutionary forces. An individual that consistently finds a little more food has more energy. More energy means a better chance of surviving difficult seasons, a better chance of raising healthy offspring, a better chance of passing those useful traits into the next generation. Natural selection doesn't need dramatic victories. Sometimes one extra meal changes the future. Scientists call this idea the postural feeding hypothesis. It proposes that upright posture first became useful while feeding among trees rather than while crossing open grasslands. Whether that hypothesis explains the whole story is still debated, but it reminds us of something important. Evolution rarely invents completely new behaviors. It often reshapes behaviors that already exist. The forest may not have been left behind overnight. Instead, it quietly prepared our ancestors for a new way of living. As climates continued changing, the distances between patches of woodland gradually increased. Soon, standing was no longer useful only for reaching fruit. It became useful for moving across the ground. Then another advantage emerged: efficiency. Imagine two groups searching for food. One spends enormous amounts of energy traveling. The other uses significantly less energy to reach exactly the same destination. By sunset, one group still has enough strength to gather more food, protect its young, or continue searching. The other is exhausted. That difference matters. Studies comparing chimpanzees and humans showed just how remarkable human walking eventually became. Chimpanzees use roughly 4 times as much energy to cover the same distance. Humans, by comparison, move with extraordinary efficiency. Every step functions like a carefully controlled fall. Your body leans forward. Gravity begins pulling you ahead. Instead of resisting that motion, your muscles guide it. Your tendons stretch and store energy. Then they release that energy into the next stride. Your ankles, knees, hips, and spine work together like parts of a remarkably efficient machine. Without thinking about it, your body constantly recycles energy from one step into the next. That efficiency allowed our ancestors to travel farther while spending fewer calories. In a world where food became increasingly scattered, that wasn't simply convenient, it could mean the difference between surviving and starving. Walking upright offered another unexpected benefit: heat. Imagine standing beneath the blazing African sun at midday. An animal walking on 4 legs exposes much of its back directly to the strongest sunlight. An upright body presents a much smaller surface to the overhead sun. Standing also raises more of the body into moving air, allowing heat to escape more effectively. Combined with our remarkable ability to sweat, this gave later members of our lineage an unusual advantage. While many predators rested during the hottest hours of the day, our ancestors could remain active. They were not the fastest animals on the landscape, but they did not need to be. They simply kept moving, hour after hour, step after step. Little by little, evolution rewarded bodies that could travel farther, remain cooler, and spend less energy doing it. But every evolutionary success comes with a cost. Nature never gives something for nothing. The very adaptations that made walking possible would also create challenges that every human still carries today. Efficient, you don't. You are a biological anomaly. So why would evolution abandon one of nature's most successful body plans? Why trade four legs for two? Why exchange stability for balance, speed for endurance, and safety for possibility? The answer isn't that our ancestors simply wanted to see over tall grass. In fact, that famous explanation is probably wrong. The real story is far more extraordinary. It is the story of how a changing world forced our ancestors to reinvent their bodies, and in doing so, laid the foundation for every tool, every city, every work of art, every civilization, and every human achievement that followed. To understand why we walk the way we do, we have to travel back more than 6 million years. Forget highways, forget buildings, forget language, forget fire. Imagine an Africa unlike anything you've ever seen. Towering forests stretch across the landscape. Rivers snake through dense vegetation. The air is thick with humidity, insects, and birdsong. Leopards stalk silently through the branches, while ancient elephants move beneath the canopy. Troops of primates swing effortlessly from tree to tree, rarely touching the ground. This is the world our ancestors knew, and they were perfectly built for it. Their long arms pulled them through the trees, their curved fingers wrapped securely around branches. Their flexible feet could grip almost like another pair of hands. Everything about their bodies declared the same message: you belong in the canopy. For millions of years, that strategy worked. The forest provided food, the trees provided safety. Predators were often easier to avoid above the ground than below it. Life was never easy, but it was familiar. Then, almost imperceptibly, the world began to change. Not through a single catastrophe, not through one devastating event, but through millions of years of shifting climates. Temperatures gradually cooled, rainfall patterns changed. Some forests shrank while open woodland expanded. Instead of one endless canopy, the landscape became a patchwork of trees separated by wider and wider gaps. At first, those changes barely mattered. A fruit tree that had once been only a few branches away now required climbing down and crossing a short clearing. A water source became slightly farther away. Food became a little less predictable. One generation adapted, then the next. Evolution rarely works through dramatic moments. It works through countless tiny challenges repeated over immense stretches of time. Imagine waking up every morning to discover that your world has become just a little more difficult than it was yesterday. Not enough to force immediate change, just enough that individuals willing to explore a little farther find slightly more food. Those individuals survive a little more often. Their offspring inherit bodies and behaviors that make those journeys just a little easier. Over hundreds of thousands of generations, tiny advantages become enormous transformations. That is how evolution writes history, one small success at a time. One of the earliest clues to this transformation comes from a remarkable fossil discovered in Chad. Its name is Sahelanthropus chadensis. It lived around 7 million years ago. Scientists have recovered only a limited number of fossils from this species, yet one tiny feature has sparked decades of scientific debate. At the base of the skull sits a small opening called the foramen magnum. This is where the spinal cord connects with the brain. In modern chimpanzees, the opening sits farther toward the back because the head projects in front of a mostly horizontal spine. In humans, it sits farther underneath the skull, allowing the head to balance above a more vertical spine. The skull of Sahelanthropus appears to fall somewhere between those two conditions. It isn't definitive proof that this species walked exactly like we do, but it hints that something remarkable may already have begun. Some members of our ancient family tree may have been spending more time upright than any ape before them. If that interpretation is correct, then one of the defining features of humanity did not begin with a larger brain. It began with a different way of moving, and the next discoveries suggest that this new way of moving may have started in a place few people would expect, not on the open savanna, but high among the trees themselves.